Michelle Illiatovitch, and I am 78, almost 79. Um, what do I love about aging? I think that I've become a little more laid back, hopefully easier on myself than I was in the past. Certainly not feeling like I know everything makes it easier just to walk around and not feel like I have to have answers or that I know what's right and wrong. I know this sounds like a kind of a strange answer, but I really didn't. Like when I was younger, I didn't have a lot of thoughts about like getting married or having a family. I really kind of much lived in the present. There wasn't, I want to be, you know, a fireman or whatever, maybe a baseball player, but I knew that that wasn't going to happen. But I didn't have any great expectations. Through my whole life, as I think really I became more aware of it as a teenager, being in the middle of nature. I used to find places when I was 14, 15, 16 years old to go and be by myself. I had a particular park and a stream that I would go and sit by, and there was just a calmness and a peace. And I still find that when things are crazy, when my life feels upside down, unbearable, to go and find some trees to hug, literally, and to walk amongst really is what gives me the most peace. Yeah, I would like to have the courage to have the poetry that I've written, try to get it published. That would give me a great deal of satisfaction. Um, I think that's probably in terms of a dream and an aspiration. That is my biggest uh, concrete kind of thing. Uh, I would like to come to a place in my life where I can, although as I said before, I feel like I've become more relaxed, that I can just become more accepting, not be hard on myself or in confrontation with the world around me that I find very difficult to navigate it right now. Sometimes there are certain things. I know that like I watched my parents grow older, and that was, watching them lose the ability to do things and watching them become unwell. And my mother in particular, I think, was a pretty fearful person, and that kind of fear was put out. But I also saw that she was incredibly capable, quite a remarkable woman, actually. And she kept on going up until very short while before she passed away. She lived on her own at 91. Probably wasn't the best thing, but she did it. She made things work and could still do all kinds of things. As I said, quite a remarkable woman. So I saw that. And I've got people around me, that are older and are still very capable. And it doesn't have the same idea in my head as that you get older and suddenly you fall apart. Certainly there is, the falling, the hurting yourself, the getting achier, the arthritis, all that other stuff. That isn't pleasant. But I feel like keeping going and not allowing myself to just give in to all of that stuff is what makes you get on with your life and keep living, not just existing. It's a hard one for me because I think I personally am going through a difficult time because of things that have happened in my life. I'm just feeling like I can let go and that I can do whatever, which is something I used to feel when I was younger. I never thought twice about anything. I would just, oh, sure, I can do it. Why can't I do it? Let me do it. And I don't have quite that same feeling now. And I said, I think that has got to do with trauma, I guess, that's happened in the past while in my life. I think just be steadier. I don't get so overwhelmed by things as I used to. And that's a really good feeling that this is what's happening. So deal with it. And I used to, I think, get much more upset, much more reactive. And I'm not as reactive, which does allow me to kind of, take on those things. And I think, willing to take on, different things like lawn bowling, which doesn't seem like a big thing, but I don't think I would have done that a number of years. Just go and do it because there's all kinds of different people. I've never done it before. And I want to experience new things. And my 25-year-old self was kind of crazy in many ways. She just charged ahead. I would just tell her not to worry, just to keep going. Because as long as you have it in you to keep going, then you're okay. And not to think, and not to overthink the future. You can't plan, you certainly can't plan what's going to happen in your life because curves are there all the time, and just be ready to handle that. So. This is a story I tell a lot. And as I was thinking about it, I was realizing the importance of it in many ways. I had an interesting encounter with Danny Kaye many years ago in Montreal. And the reason I remember, it was pretty exciting. I mean, Danny Kaye had been a hero of my family for as long as I can remember and all of that. But when I think about why that was important, it was because I just did it. I did something that sounded crazy. I did something that I had people tell me at the time, what are you doing? This is really nuts. And it wasn't. And I did it. And I am very glad that I did. So the memory hangs on as possibility. So I lived in Montreal for a few years. And I lived with a friend of mine. We had very little money. But one of the things that we did is we bought a series to Place des Arts because that was something we could do. It was for a whole year. We could afford it. And one of the performances was by Danny Kaye, who, as I said, we grew up in my family. He was like a hero. And it so happened that the performance came a week after Bobby Kennedy was killed. And I went because we had the tickets. I was devastated by his assassination. I was a total wreck. And I went to the performance and I laughed because Danny Kaye can be so funny. And I was so grateful to have been given that gift of laughter that when we got back to the apartment, I said to my friend, I am calling Place des Arts and I'm going to ask to speak to him and just tell him thank you. That's all I wanted to say is thank you. So I called and I got some guy and I said, I wanted to speak to Danny Kaye. He said, oh, okay, I'll pass you through. So never in a million years had I expected that. I expected him to say, are you crazy? And I said, okay, well, just tell him that I appreciate, So he passed me through. The phone rang and he answered the phone. And we started talking. And I just said, I wanted to say thank you. I said, I have been devastated in an incredible morning since Bob Kennedy was killed. And I laughed tonight. And I really appreciated that. And he thanked me for the feedback. And then he said, well, why don't you come over to our hotel room there's a bunch of the people from the show hanging out. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, okay. So I got off the phone and I told my friend. Now, the problem was that at the same time, we took in kids off the street from time to time, and they stayed with us. And there was a girl coming in that my friend had arranged to come in. And we usually did this together. And I said, I'm sorry, I am doing this for me tonight. I will be back. You're welcome to come. She will come and wait for us. And she said, no, I'm not. And she was telling me how terrible it was and what an awful person I was. I said, I'm sorry, I'm going. So I went, what is it, the one in Montreal, Chateau Champlain? The big hotel. Anyway, I went over there, went up to his room, and there were guys from the band, and we hung around for a while. They left, and he and I were there, and we started talking. He was friends with Bob Kennedy, and so we talked a little bit about loss and all of that. We just talked about a bunch of different things. It got a little dicey at some point because he wanted more than me just coming up to say hello, and I was not prepared for that. And I said no. He had a daughter my age. It just felt really off, which was unfortunate. But he invited us to come on Monday night. He said, I explained the thing with this young woman, and he said, bring her. He said, I want to talk to her and tell her she needs to go back home. And because she was, had run away, she was living on the street. So I went home, and on the Monday night, 3 of us went to the show, and we were backstage. And he did talk to her. I don't think it made any difference because she left the next day and stole some stuff from us. But I talked to him every day that week, and then he invited me to come. They were going up to the Laurentians on the Friday, and I asked my boss if I could have the day off, and he said, no, I gave you a half day off to get ready for going on Monday. You take the day off, then you don't have a job. I needed a job. It was nice to have gone up to Laurentians, but that wasn't going to pay my rent or my food. So I was level-headed enough. So that's my Danny Kaye story. I just did it. And many times in my life I've done that. And I've become more hesitant in ways since I've gotten older. But probably that's smart because you don't want to just do everything that you get in your head. Anyway.